There is a place on this planet where the ocean floor has never seen sunlight. Not once. Not for a single second in 4 billion years of Earth's history. A place so deep, so cold, and so crushingly dark that for most of human history, the scientific consensus was simple. Nothing lives there. Nothing could. The pressure alone would reduce a human body to paste in milliseconds. And yet, people went anyway. They built machines. They sealed themselves inside steel spheres barely large enough to sit in, and they descended. What they found at the bottom rewrote everything. The Mariana Trench sits in the western Pacific Ocean, curving in a long crescent roughly 200 miles southwest of Guam. It stretches nearly 1,600 miles from end to end, longer than the entire United States East Coast. But its length is not the point. The point is what happens at its deepest spot, a location called the Challenger Deep, named after the British survey ship that first measured it in 1875. At Challenger Deep, the ocean floor drops to 36,037 feet. That is nearly 7 miles straight down. To feel the scale of that number, consider this. Take Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth's surface, and drop it into the trench. Its summit would still sit more than a mile beneath the waves. The Mariana Trench is not simply deep. It is the lowest elevation of Earth's entire crust, the most extreme natural environment our planet produces, a place more remote and more hostile than the surface of Mars, and far less explored. For most of the 20th century, it sat at the edge of human knowledge, a dark blank on every map. Scientists suspected it was empty. They were wrong in ways that still astonish. The Mariana Trench exists because of a slow-motion collision that has been happening for hundreds of millions of years. The Pacific Plate, one of the largest tectonic plates on Earth, moves steadily westward. When it meets the smaller Mariana Plate at their boundary, something has to give. The Pacific Plate loses. It dives beneath the Mariana Plate in a process called subduction, bending downward into the Earth's mantle like the edge of a massive steel sheet being forced under another. At the exact line where the Pacific Plate begins its descent, the seafloor tears open. That tear is the trench. What makes the Mariana Trench so extraordinarily deep, deeper than any other trench on Earth, is the age of the crust being pulled under. The Pacific Plate at this location is approximately 170 million years old. Ancient oceanic crust. Crust that formed during the age of dinosaurs. Old oceanic crust is cold and dense, and cold, dense crust sinks deeper before it melts back into the mantle. Age equals depth. The trench is essentially a wound in the planet's surface, a place where rocks older than the Atlantic Ocean are being slowly consumed by the Earth itself. Imagine surviving the descent. At 36,000 feet, the water pressure reaches more than 1,000 times the pressure at the ocean's surface. That translates to approximately 8 tons of force pressing against every single square inch of your body. Not your whole body. Every square inch, separately, simultaneously, without pause. The equivalent of 3 full-sized cars balanced on your thumbnail. Under that pressure, the air in your lungs compresses to nothing. Unprotected tissue ruptures. Bones that have supported a human frame for decades splinter in an instant. The temperature holds just above freezing, between 34 and 39 degrees Fahrenheit. cold enough to shut down organ systems in minutes, even if the pressure didn't kill you first. And it is dark. Not dim, not shadowy. Absolutely, completely, permanently dark. Sunlight penetrates to roughly 1,000 feet on a clear day. The midnight zone begins at 3,000 feet, where the last traces of solar light disappear. Challenger Deep sits more than 10 times deeper than that. No photon of sunlight has ever reached the bottom of the Mariana Trench. No day has ever broken there. No season has ever changed. It is a place where time, as humans experience it, does not exist. January 23rd, 1960. Two men climbed into a steel pressure sphere 7 feet in diameter, sealed themselves inside, and began sinking. U.S. Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh and Swiss engineer Jacques Piccard were piloting a vessel called the Trieste, part underwater blimp, part armored capsule, on a mission that had never been attempted. No cameras, no sampling equipment, no support crew nearby. Just two humans inside a steel ball, descending through total darkness toward a place no living thing had ever intentionally visited. The descent took 4 hours and 47 minutes. At 30,000 feet, a sharp crack ran through the vessel. A plexiglass observation window had fractured under pressure. Walsh and Piccard looked at each other. They continued. When the Trieste touched the seafloor at 35,800 feet, the two men had 20 minutes before they needed to begin ascending. And in those 20 minutes, through the cracked viewport, they saw something that would be debated for the next 50 years. A flatfish, roughly a foot long, moving slowly across the sediment. Then, small shrimp-like creatures. The deepest place on Earth was not empty. But without cameras or samples, no one would fully believe them until someone went back. Nobody went back for 52 years. The Trieste had proved humans could reach the bottom, but as a scientific tool, it was nearly useless. It couldn't photograph what it saw. It couldn't collect a single specimen. It could barely maneuver. The 20 minutes Walsh and Piccard spent at Challenger Deep produced 2 eyewitness accounts, and nothing else. By the late 1960s, the U.S. Navy had decided the cost was too high and the scientific return too low. The deepest point on Earth was abandoned. Then, on March 26, 2012, filmmaker James Cameron descended alone inside a vertical torpedo-shaped submersible called the Deep Sea Challenger, equipped with cameras, collection systems, and lighting capable of illuminating the seafloor for the first time. The descent took 2 hours and 36 minutes. Cameron sat in a sphere so cramped he could not extend his arms, watching darkness fill his 9-inch window. What he found was not what anyone expected. The seafloor was, in his own words, lunar and desolate. Flat. Silent. Ghostly amphipods drifted near the bottom, translucent and alien. But the sediment samples he brought back told a different story. 68 new species, most of them bacteria, living in rock, surviving on chemistry rather than light. But here is where the science gets uncomfortable. Everything we've shown you so far, the snailfish, the amphipods, the tube worms, we found them because we looked. Because we sent cameras and lights into the dark and something appeared in the beam. We have surveyed less than 5% of the Mariana Trench floor. The other 95% has never been photographed. Never been sampled, never been lit. In 1872, the HMS Challenger dredged two enormous fossilized shark teeth from the Pacific floor. The teeth were identified as Megalodon, the largest predatory fish in Earth's history. Extinct by scientific consensus for 3.6 million years. Then someone measured the manganese crust on those teeth. Manganese accumulates on objects at the ocean floor at a known, consistent rate. The crust on those teeth suggested they were approximately 11,000 years old. Not 3.6 million. 11,000. Scientists have debated this measurement ever since. Some call it contamination, some call it anomalous. No one has called it resolved. Megalodon required warm, shallow water, abundant prey near the surface. Everything that the deep ocean is not. That is the scientific consensus. The same scientific consensus that said nothing could survive at 11,000 meters of pressure. The same consensus that said the deepest point on Earth was a lifeless abyss. We have been wrong about this place before. The trench has lateral corridors, side passages branching off the main channel, extending horizontally into the rock. Some run for kilometers. Their depth, their width, their contents, unknown. No vehicle has entered most of them. The cameras don't reach. In 2019, one of Vescovo's external cameras recorded an anomaly in a lateral section of the trench, a displacement in the water column. Something large enough to register on sonar, but never captured on film. It was logged. It was noted. It was not explained. We are not telling you Megalodon is alive. We are telling you that the animal scientists said couldn't exist at this depth. Every single one of them was here when we arrived. We are telling you that 95% of this trench has never been seen by human eyes or human cameras. We are telling you that the teeth exist. The dating anomaly exists. The sonar displacement exists. What you conclude from that is your decision.